And, maybe you've even had an experience um, where you knew that you needed to have more faith, but you didn't have enough. We had talked about how if you don't already have the faith to believe these things about God, that you can pray to him, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. So we wanted to start out with that particular thing so that that's in the back of your mind. If you're thinking, oh, these are too hard for me to really believe at this point. And we're going to show you in future classes how to build your faith. But at this point, you can say this, and we want you to hear the story that that saying comes from. So David, this is from Mark 9:14 through 17. And if you want to open up your Bible and read it, you can, or you can just listen and we will read it for you.
Okay.
Oh, and let me give a little bit of the setting too. Sorry. The
Okay.
setting is that Jesus has just taken Peter, James, and John up to the Mount of Transfiguration, where he was transfigured, where God has said, this is my son, listen to him. And now they're coming down.
Mm-hmm. And when the disciples came back to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and some scribes arguing with them. Immediately, when the entire crowd saw him, they were amazed and began running up to greet him.
And he asked them, what are you disputing with them?
And one person from the crowd answered him, Teacher, I brought you my son because he has a spirit that makes him unable to speak. And whenever it seizes him, it slams him to the ground, and he foams at the mouth and grinds his teeth and becomes stiff. And I told your disciples so that they would cast it out, but they could not do it.
And he answered them and said, O unbelieving generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him to me.
And they brought the boy to him. When he saw him, the spirit immediately threw him into convulsions, and falling to the ground, he began rolling around and foaming at the mouth. And he asked his father, How long has this been happening to him?
And he said, from childhood, it has often thrown him both into the fire and into the water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us.
But Jesus said to him, If you can, all things are possible for the one who believes.
Immediately, the boy's father cried out and said, I do believe. Help my unbelief.
Oh, there's where the verse is.
Yeah.
Okay. When Jesus saw that a crowd was rapidly gathering, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and do not enter him again.
And after crying out and throwing him into terrible convulsions, it came out, and the boy became so much like a corpse that most of them said, He's dead.
But Jesus took him by the hand and raised him, and he got up.
Okay, good. So there you've heard the story that comes from. And David, you said, oh, and you were kind of surprised to find the context of it. What did it do for you hearing that in the context of the story?
Well, we all believe we have faith, and and we are proud of that as Christians, but we don't have faith fully, and we need to pray for stronger faith. There are things that are still difficult for us to understand, to wrap our minds around, and the thing is, we're never going to understand a lot of those things, but we have to have the faith to accept it, that it's God's will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow, that's good. That's good. And so here he says, he has said to Jesus, if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us. And Jesus was like, what do you mean if I can? And he said, all things are possible for those who believe. And because of saying that, then the father realized, oh, he needs to believe, and he's willing to do anything for his son. And so he knows he doesn't quite have enough faith. And so he says, I do believe. I believe this little tiny bit. Help my unbelief. And that's what God can do for us. And, maybe you've even had an experience um, where you knew that you needed to have more faith, but you didn't have enough. And you may not have said these exact words, but maybe you wished that you had stronger faith. And that's what God is doing. Even just the fact that he's brought you to this class where you're going to learn some things that you can do to build your faith and where you can apply that. Even that is an answer to that desire that you have to have stronger faith. Okay,
You
so
also
let's go ahead.
recognizing your unbelief.
Mm-hmm.
That is an act of humility. And
Yeah.
that's what Jesus wants to see.
Yeah.
He's,
Yeah.
he's not going to punish us for not having, he wants us to have as strong a faith as we can. And
Mm-hmm.
he kind of berated them a little bit for not having enough faith. But if you can admit that to him,
Yeah.
that's what he wants to see. He wants you to know your limitations and that you need him to
Right.
get the rest of the way.